Good afternoon. Nearly 5 minutes to go, but good afternoon. Hope you've had a good morning at the summit so far. My name's Rich. I'm from a company called Area, here to spend a little bit of time talking about agents, the whole space around Gen AI, how we keep that secure and governed, and then how we may help accelerate your journey into the agent space. Now, it would be remiss of me to be at an AI summit not talking about agents, so if you take one thing away from the summit, it's probably that word is going to be used far too many times, but we'll get into it. So who's Area? We are a company that has two components to what we do. Think of Area as an agent building low-code platform that sits on top of a model ops orchestration layer. So those two things go hand in hand to give you the flexibility of building agents that can tackle tasks or workflows with all of the guardrails and governance that sit underneath that. So we keep you nice and secure, and we raise trust levels to look after your AI workflows. Been around for about 2 years now. First 12, 14 months of that was product development, R&D. We've got about 130, 140 engineers across 12 countries in the world, and we're really focused on developing and innovating this AI space at a good strong clip. So in the last 9 months, we've really been known to the public. We've gone from maybe 450, 500 customers that have gained access to our platform in the last 9 months. So we're really growing quite fast, and that is to say that we're doing something right in this space that gives you flexibility and trust working with AI. Previous to this, our founder, John Marshall, founded AirWatch, sold that to VMware in 2014, and then went on to start a company called OneTrust. Now, both of those companies are very, very, very credible in terms of data security, data privacy, data scalability. So it goes hand in hand that our story, you're going to hear a lot about how we bring those learnings, those lessons, those technical capabilities to the space of AI. Very quickly, you'll find us in about 4 or 5 Gartner reports. We're really trying to influence and help Gartner manage their TRISM story, which I'll talk about in the end. We're already in 3 Forrester reports and 2 IDC guidance, and this will start to evolve over the coming months. So we feel that we're doing something right, and we'll get onto a little bit of that in a minute. But software's changing. I've been in software for about 20 years now. I like to think of traditional software as complex databases with some very sophisticated UIs on top of those databases so that you can read and write from those data sources. Now, great, really transformed a lot of digital initiatives pan-industry, but it is changing. And we believe, we're not alone in the fact that we believe that software is moving more towards an ecosystem of AI platforms, interoperable agents that are going to start to really evolve the way in which you can leverage software in your organizations. So we're here to help bridge some of that gap. It's not an out with the old, in with the new. But if we think of the analytics space, the AI space, just in isolation, predictive to generative, how do you manage those two worlds? Software world is changing. How do you make sure that you've got orchestration around all of your data to really leverage it to drive your strategy forward? So we're here to help bridge a bit of the gap. I really didn't make this slide. I don't like it. I don't know if it's generated by AI, but it's a situation we find ourselves in. I think 78% of all POCs are not getting past POCs into production. There's a whole number of reasons around that. Sometimes it's as simple as fear and trust, and your exec sponsorship isn't what it needs to be. Sometimes these POCs have been on the periphery of an organization, and it's not teeing into your corporate operational data system, so the value you're getting back from those POCs is not demonstrable about how it can transform your industry. Therefore, when you stand up in front of a business case forum and you're talking about the value you're going to get in return, it's a bit of a we don't know, but we need an investment to get started. So there's a little bit of a hurdle that companies and customers are trying to get over at the moment. And we're here to try and help change that equation, because investments don't need to break the bank. Investments can be lean and quick and immediate. Our starting price point is $49 per month to administer an agent platform, and it grows and scales from there, but nothing that's too scary. And then you can get immediate and impactful returns from that. With an administrator license, you can connect via tools, via connectors, via functions into corporate data systems, and really start to leverage that asset that you have, that corporate IP that you have, to design and define your agents that then lead to value that you can get back off the back of these use cases. Now, orchestration layer, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but think of it in terms of you have a racetrack, you have lots and lots of horses competing in that race at the moment. OpenAI, Anthropic, Claude, Gemini, Llama, DeepSeek, and. Not only that, their newest horse is better than their last horse, so which one do you bet on? So we provide the race track in that analogy, if I play it through, where we're enabling each of those horses to win the race, and we're enabling you to not have to bet on one horse, so you have flexibility around choice, and you're agnostic to the underlying technology that sits there. But orchestration is not just about placing a bet, it's about remaining compliant, it's about remaining secure, it's about remaining optimal in terms of cost and performance. It's about how you chop and change between these providers to make sure that there's, like there was over the last 2 days, a bit of shakiness with OpenAI, there's some outages there. How does the system intelligently route to a Claude that makes sure that that's still providing uptime to your end user? So there's a whole piece in orchestration there that is becoming more and more relevant to advanced users of AI. And then training and adoption. Some systems are complex, some systems are simple. The easier you make that to self-learn, the easier your AI adoption journey can be. And we say this a lot, you've probably heard it a lot, but not moving fast is riskier than moving fast in this space. If you're not doing something, you can definitely rest assured that your competitors are. Then there comes the security, the risk, the trust, the data. How do you keep your information, your IP, your competitive advantage away from the public domain? How do you make sure that everything that you're not doing in these agent models is going up to train the public version that everyone else can leverage from an IP perspective? So this is taken from the DeepSeek's website. Now, I think their tagline is something like into the unknown. So it's a great tagline on one respect, but if you flip that around and it's like, where's your data going? There's no indemnification. There's pervasive interactions in terms of how they're monitoring your usage with these systems. So understanding the risk is really, really important, but it's obviously not a barrier for you to get started. But when you go through the terms of these providers, it's really important to understand the fact that if something does go wrong with your corporate IP, you're on your own. It's not a partnership with you and these providers. New threat vectors. So whether that's data theft, whether that's model theft, whether that's training your data to do something that it shouldn't do through a prompt injection attack, whether you're gaining corporate access to systems because you haven't governed your internet-facing agent in the right way, and all of a sudden an agent doesn't know if an engineer is talking to that agent or a bad actor. It's just going to follow the new command that it's told to do. So therefore, having the wrappers around these agents to make sure that you're secure in operations at build time through to runtime, making sure that you're not subject to a denial of service attack. Data leakage is a big, big topic in here, and I think Gartner will talk about in the region of $3 to $5 billion of damages in between companies with the use of infringement of IP. Data leakage is really, really important. It's a big topic to look after when it comes to agents. I think this is probably well understood, but there's obviously brand issues that come when some of these do go wrong, but they could be based from a number of different factors: exposing sensitive data, PII data, PCI data, insensitive information. EUA Act is getting really, really tighter on that. Low quality output, do you trust it? Is it accurate? Where's it citating that information from? And do you have biased algorithms that isn't factoring in how you operate as an organization? So as much as there's a huge opportunity, there's a little bit of risk that we need to factor in and look after as well. So the big elephant in the room for us is change management. With all of that said, trust, security, risk, data management, change, orchestration, how do we keep on top of change, and how do we make sure that we're really keeping up with innovation but keeping ourselves safe? So model libraries are becoming overwhelming. I think Hugging Face now has about 1.2 million models in their model library. How do you surf through all of that to make sure that you're choosing the right one for your use cases? And that's just one model library. This is the ELO scores of proficiency. So over the last maybe nearly 2 and a bit years, you can start to see the innovation race really play out. So you've got new providers that didn't know about 2 years ago that are now topping the charts. But I think the latest stat is that one of these providers will have the leading model that on top of the leaderboard for 2.5 days. That's it. It used to be 8 months. It used to be 8 or 9 months. It used to be, going back 4 months ago, it was about 2 months. It's now 2.5 days. So every 2.5 days, there's a new bit of innovation that is going to give you more performance, a more proficient model, and then how do you leverage that innovation to make sure that you're as optimal as you can in your AI pursuits? That is not slowing down, by the way. And then we've got rapid deprecation of models. As these models get deprecated, they're not supported, the cost goes up. We'll see an illustration of that in a second, but your ability to maintain latest version, not latest -1 or 2, has never been stronger than it is today. But your ability to give yourself choice is also perhaps more important than it's been up until this point today. So you can see in the background there, I think there's 3 months in a row where they've OpenAI have deprecated old models. So you may have architected a system using 3.5 with OpenAI, and then 3 months later it's deprecated. So all of a sudden you've got a security risk, you've got a cost risk sat in your architecture if you haven't got the ability to quickly on the fly change that. So some cost differences. I can build this out a little bit, but ChatGPT, you might not need the, 7 trillion parameter model of a 4.5 that's coming through. A mini might do most of the tasks that you need it to do, but you can see the cost differential. First and foremost, if you started an architecture 6 months ago, you may not have, or 9 months ago, you may not have had a mini to choose from, so you may have used a different model. For 1 million tokens of output, you're spending $15 versus 0.6 of a dollars. Now, in isolation, it's probably nothing to really worry about. If I'm knocking up a legal contract and I'm using ChatGPT Mini, I'm probably consuming about 8,000 tokens. So, move that 0.6 over here somewhere. It's for generating a legal contract. It's not a lot of consumption, but that's one person doing that one time a day. Now, if you start to roll those use cases out across your organization, which is what we see chatbots popping up, we see Copilot trials, we see existing AI AI tech leveraging your existing tech stack for data. We see some orchestration, but most of our conversations with our customers are around here. You've tried a little bit with Copilot, you maybe got some other POCs with other providers going on, and before you know it, there may be 6, 8, 9 players in the mix that you're trying to get your head around. And all of a sudden, there's an economic conversation there, there's a management conversation there's an architecture conversation, and. So we probably think in the next 12 months we'll be more across the top hand right here, at the top right side of this diagram, which is AI starts to embed into your organizations. An ecosystem of agents that are interoperable, that understands different part of your organizations, that are not biased to the technology choices you've made over the last 5, 8, 10, 12, 15 years or whatnot. As I said, the bridge in the gap, it's not out with the old, in with the new. It's how do we leverage all of the old in a very, very new way that's orchestrated, and we can really start to use that IP with new insights in a new way. So we'll start to see more of the orchestration come into play as a growing trend. And then here we just want to, there's high value tasks through to lower risk, through to lower value, lots and lots of repetitive tasks here. But we want these models, the data, the prompts, we want to govern that in a single place that enables us to scale and move faster. Here's a simple starting point. You may have, you may have a simple input to an output. You may have made a model available to individuals. They may just be prompting that model, querying it, seeing what research comes back out of it. They may upload a flat file and very, very simply just doing a mundane research task. And then as the usage, the proficiency around AI starts to grow up, you start to see more of these popping up. You may see more models, more versions introduced in your architecture. You may see different frontier models being provided and making sure that, I don't know if it's a mathematical equation, maybe Claude's better than OpenAI. Maybe you start to have statistical use cases as well as legal use cases. So all of a sudden, you want best of breed, but not have to manage the complexity that will build up when these systems need to integrate to data sources, with static data sources like a cloud data warehouse, or dynamic data sources where the data is changing all the time. You might want to read and write from those systems. And then the architecture gets more localized to the user with some memory objects. We might want to post back to these systems, and then we want to fine tune everything. We want to understand, is version 1 of our prompts accurate, or has it evolved over the last 6 months, and we can keep rolling back to old versions or augmenting our prompts as we go, so that our agents in this sense start to become not really anyone's there yet, but they're very deterministic, but they're learning. So you can imagine a world where automation is a common conversation that we're in, whereas we're big in robotics, RPA, we've done a load of automation, it's great. That automation, repetitive tasks may drive a KPI up over here. It may do 1,000 things really, really quickly, but it's doing the same thing. And it's automated, and there's value in that 100%. But then what happens if this KPI that you're pushing up over here doesn't have the knock-on effect to the rest of your KPIs in terms of how you run your business? So how do you have a wrapper around that that understands holistically the business measures, the business goals, and it adapts over time? So we start to see an architecture of an ecosystem that adapts and learns over time versus just being a deterministic or an automated set of tools that operate together. So this is where we bring in our orchestration platform. As I said at the start, we're an agent building platform that enables flexible use of creation of tasks and agents, and then we govern that underneath with a very secure orchestration platform. You'll hear Gartner talk about Trism. You've got kind of centralized data, decentralized data, kind of data everywhere. You've got bringing your own, whether that's keys, whether that's data on flat files. You've got some embedded AI into vendors that are all trying to enhance their software offerings by embedding AI just to make it a little bit more attractive to their customers. But then you've still got this piece in the middle here, which talks about trust, risk, security. So there's a lot going on in there. There's a lot of complexity. And what we see is there's a build approach to that. There's a buy approach to that. You may have modular components to that in your architecture. There's not one right or wrong way. We just feel quite closely aligned with the way that Gartner are looking at this to say, when you've got so much data input, when you've got so much activity, when you've got policy and risk and governance that you need to inherently build to manage all of these things, it makes sense to have that in one spot. It makes sense to be able to keep yourself agile to change as everything under that moves. The data sources aren't getting less and less. Putting all of your data in one place has never really been done. I don't think it will. So how do you make sure that you handle the situation with your data architecture as you see it? So the orchestration platform, as I said, is going to be something that not just us, we're not the only game in town, but it's a growing trend over the last 6 months. The big piece in all of this is the introduction of agent to agent, the introduction of MCP servers. 4 or 5 months ago, customers weren't even talking to us about MCP. It wasn't really heard of. Now it's like front and center of some of the conversations that they want an interoperable architecture. They want to make sure that these systems can communicate to each other. MCP is a very good way of doing that, but then again, it's a new security vector you have to keep on top on. So managing all of that in one place starts to become more powerful as this whole ecosystem of AI evolves. So I'll come back to it. There's a bit of the old, bit of the new. How do you give yourself a good pathway to making sure that you can leverage the innovation that's coming through? Area has about 500 pre-baked agents in our library. They range from sales, HR, marketing, finance. They're a starting point. Many of our customers like this AI thing, this agent thing, this agentic AI thing, like we don't know what we don't know, we don't know how to get started. This is a starting point. A legal contract red line. That's a common use case for our legal customers or our in-house counsels to say, great, that's a good place for me to start. Doesn't quite do what I need it to do, so I'll evolve it. I'll adapt the prompt. I'll just edit it. But it's a starting place, and it's a go from 0 to 1 as quickly as you possibly can imagine yourself doing that. But then these will then feature through integrations, through connectors into your data sets. And that's where you start to take pre-baked agents into a very powerful way that starts to understand your information. Everything that we host on Area is closed sourced. So nothing as I said, nothing goes out to train the public models. There's a lot that we've touched on there. There's a lot of change, there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of security to bear in mind. We think the juice is worth the squeeze. Your data sets have always been your most valuable asset, but now with integration, to have an interoperable system, with models that you can choose from, with prompts that agents will then know what they need to do, and you can tune and fine-tune that and enhance it over time, and then embed your policies so that your governance, your risk agenda is very, very high, and you're not doing anything that is out of policy for your organization. So it now becomes not just about data, it's your AI strategy, and whether that's a single spot to manage it or multiple things you're managing, you will see the AI platforms start to become more and more relevant in your organization. So it's a strategy that is enabled through AI in a platform. To finish, we have a 3x3x3, which is 3 licenses, 3 months, and 3 workshops. What customers are using this for is have a little look around the platform, We can spend a couple of workshops with you to go through use cases, POCs, how we help you build these agents, how we help you secure them, how we help you choose the right model that fits the use case. And then you can just see how it goes. It's as our founder would say, it's a truly no strings attached. You just go in there, have a look at the software that we built and see what you think. If you have anyone that's in education, again, our founders has a school out in Miami. He's very proactively trying to get AI into schools. If you have anyone that you know is in education, then there's another QR code there that gives you some free AI for your schools, whether you're teaching or your kids, whatever it might be. If you want to carry the conversation, we're on booth 106, which is sort of upstairs and to the right, I think. And here's a QR code to the presentation. But I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the last couple of minutes that we have left. But thanks very much for your time this morning. Oh, sorry. Yep. Question.
Yeah, I looked at the list you had of the different OpenAI pricing for different OpenAI models, but curious how we assess the different qualities of those models and how they vary from week to week.
So we have we call it a battle test playground, but you can run up to 7 tests synchronously next to each other. So you could have the different OpenAI models in there. You could have a Claude, you could have a Gemini, you could have a Llama, same prompt, same data source, same use case, and then you're running those tests. And then what you see is a summary. You get a summary on the right-hand side, which says time to respond, cost of that query, and then over time, you can start to see how that then features into, right, for this use case, you would choose this model. So it gives you eyes on the cost and eyes on the time. It can citate where it got information from, so you can start to say, I trust that one over that one, or I prefer the way that that has spoken to me in terms of my output. So we call it a battle test playground, but it's essentially that. It's how do I test for the best fit and cost and performance. Okay. Good. All right, thanks very much. Thank you.